So by the time I got to be older, I don't think that I thought that I could not do it by myself.
Okay.
Which is the problem. Hello and welcome to my show, A Few Good Dads, where we invite you to come to Dad with us. I am your host and creator of the show, Sunny. Each show will dive into fatherhood and take a look around. My intention is to uplift fatherhood while speaking to dads and experts about dadding. If you're like me, you did not grow up with your dad. The reasons why he left or was not present may vary, but surprisingly, the outcomes are quite similar. My outcomes were feeling like I did not have all the information, something was missing from my toolbox, and I believe that part of the reason I experienced those things is because I did not get to be fathered. As a child, I wondered if I was good enough, smart enough, or worthy. I lacked confidence for a very long time. Well, this show will be one of the ways I choose to heal. One of the ways I choose to take back my power and get what I need to navigate life. I will be interviewing dads from all over the world and from all walks of life, and I am inviting them to come dad with me. These dads will have to be vulnerable and transparent with us about a topic we should know so much more about, and frankly, I believe we take for granted and may not fully understand the great impact a dad has on our lives. Bishop Jake says, and I am paraphrasing here, being a dad is a big responsibility, and the choice to leave or stay usually has nothing to do with the child and everything to do with the enormous amount of pressure some men feel when facing fatherhood. Latif is 46 years old and uses male pronouns he, him, his, has a beautiful wife, Robin, of 16 years. He has two beautiful children, ages 24 and 6. And just like his dad, Walter Bryant, he is with his children under the same roof. Latif enjoys music like Lovely Day by Bill Withers. His favorite book is the autobiography of Malcolm X. His words to live by: spend your life being the best version of yourself, envision who that person is, and work to be that person every day. That's great wisdom, Latif. Hi, welcome to the show.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Did I get your kids' ages right?
You did. 24 and 20. I have to think about it.
I was thinking
25.
Back to,
she just turned 25, actually.
25
yeah, that's all right.
6. No problem.
That's all right. That's all right.
Is there anything more you want to add about yourself?
Well, I live here in Tallahassee, Florida. I work at Big Brothers Big Sisters as a program coordinator. I enjoy being a dad. This is one of those things ever since I took the reins of being a father that I've enjoyed every day, even the bad days, especially the bad days. But I've enjoyed it, and I don't know, it just seemed like something that I got from my father. It seemed that he took a lot of joy and pride in raising me. So I had a great example for how to lead and how to parent.
Okay, great. Thank you.
My mother was great too. Let's not diss mom. My mom was awesome too. So
listen, I don't think anyone is having any difficulty understanding mom's role and how important it is. I mentioned Bishop Jakes earlier, and the pressures to me are worth discussing. That was the first time I had actually heard someone mention anything about pressure and fathering before, and he gave a great example, I thought, that I want to share with you, and then I want to get your insight. Sure. He mentioned Christmas time. And he says that during Christmas season, you got your lights, you got your trees and the gifts and the food, and everybody's having a good time. But to dad, that feels like pressure because he needs to produce. He has to perform, right, in order for a lot of this stuff to come about.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a great analogy that he used. And so for the dads that feel the pressure to perform or produce, sometimes that can cause them to walk away.
Yeah. And
not stick around and be dad. And I was wondering for you, what kind of pressures have you felt over time, over raising your two children that you want to share with us?
I think the biggest one for me was wondering if I was doing a good job, like if I was good enough. And I still struggle with that. Like my daughter's 25, and she was parented way different than my son was parented. And in many ways, I think we discussed this before. Like in many ways, she got the less mature parent.
Mm-hmm.
So that Latif made a lot of mistakes, and worked it out. But I often struggle with, am I doing a good enough job with how I parent?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest thing. Like walking away, leaving, that was never an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, matter of fact, like I took her in. She's not my natural born child, but she's my
Mm-hmm.
child. So
Yeah.
like that was never, walking away was never an issue. And I never like really had that example. Like I knew of other kids that had that, but that wasn't my life. And that's not who I've surrounded myself with. Like my circle of friends who are also fathers, they are very, very much engaged in their children's lives.
One of my intentions for the show is to help to shine light on fatherhood, the good, bad, and ugly, and to try to help men understand, especially the men who are not dads yet, what they're getting themselves into,
Right.
how important it is that they stick around when they do decide to get into fatherhood. What's one of the memories you have of your dad? What did you love to do with your dad?
My dad was my coach, like for everything. He coached me in football. He coached me in baseball. I think when I took up lacrosse, he coached me in soccer when I played soccer for a couple of years. And that was probably the fondest memory I have, is just being at the ball field, getting ready to play. And one of the things that he was really good at was that he did not treat me like his son on the field. So if I wasn't the best player, like I wasn't getting playing time. If I wasn't if I wasn't doing the things I needed to do in practice, if I wasn't honing my skills, I wasn't getting the playing time, and it wasn't really up for negotiation. So it wasn't like we had these discussions when I went home, like, Dad, why am I not playing? Why I'm not playing? I understood why I wasn't playing, because I wasn't producing. And it was like when I started producing, then I'd see the field. It instilled hard work in me, I think. Was the number one thing. It instilled hard work, and it instilled kind of like his will to succeed. Like I know I'm not the best at all the things, but man, I'm gonna try. Like one thing you're gonna get is effort out of me. And that was the thing I think that was most important, was that he stressed effort, and he stressed hustle and all those sorts of things. But definitely going to the ball field was one. I have two, actually. Can I say the other one?
Please do.
Okay. Yeah. Going to the ball field was one. And the other one, like my dad, like I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, which is like a suburb. It's right outside of the Bronx. And my dad would have to commute. He worked in Brooklyn. He would have to commute to Brooklyn. That's about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, depends on traffic. And every morning he would wake up, he was a social worker, so he opened the clinic up, and he had to be there at 6:00. So he had to leave the house at 5:00. So he was up at 4:00. So guess who else was up at 4:00? I was, because that was when he was eating breakfast, and that's when I got a chance to really see him. Like he would come home. Actually, I really have three now that I think about it. I have three really fond memories now that I think about it. But one I learned about recently. But he would leave early, so I would see him off to work. Like I would sit with him while he, had his coffee and ate his breakfast. And then I would go back to sleep. I'd get ready for school. I'd go through my day, and then he would come home. It'd be 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm getting ready to I'm going to bed at that time. So this is when I was younger, and but one of the things I found out, this was well after I graduated. I might have been 30, 35, like a full-fledged grown-up. I found out later on that he was moonlighting as a cab driver in New York City, which is why he was coming home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, most nights, to pay for school and to pay for, to build the nest egg for college. Those like when I found that out, that's not necessarily a memory. Like that was one of those things that he wasn't going to brag about. He wasn't going to say anything like, And he was never the type of guy to be like, I did all this work for you and blah blah blah, and you don't he was never that type of guy. He just did it, and he did it quietly. And like, you could say the relationship may have suffered because of it, but I mean, like, I understand. I get it wholeheartedly. Like, I would do that if that's what needed to happen.
Exactly. And I think a lot of dadding or parenting is action driven.
Yeah,
so
for
even
sure.
though you may not have had the time that you may have spent with him because he was out doing a second job or getting up early to go to a first job, I'm sure that taught you something.
Oh yeah, for sure. That hustle, man. Another thing too, he never missed, like in high school, he never missed a game. Never missed a game. Like when I was at Howard playing football every Saturday, if we were in DC, he was at the games. So like that was just one of those things. Like he did it all.
I think from even listening to what he had to do to get you to where you are, the pressure that TD Jake speaks of is that pressure to rise to the challenge.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, and I think that's why mine is always, am I doing good enough? Because I had that example. Like, you talk about someone who had a lot of pressure. I mean, my mom was the school teacher and eventually a principal. So it wasn't like we were struggling. I was well insulated and well supported and well loved. I think the thing for him was he wanted to make sure that I had a better life.
Exactly.
And the thing that's crazy is that, like, I thought life was great. I mean, he would go above and beyond for all people, which I thought was like, in hindsight, that's a tremendous example. And it was definitely one, like, I don't want to say I try to live up to, because that's a toughie. Like, there's no sense in putting extra pressure on yourself. When I hear the whispers in my head of, am I doing good enough? I go back to the work I'm doing, and I think about kind of, how I'm going about my business and going about my life.
To the dads out there who are becoming a dad, or maybe they've, been in fatherhood for a short period of time and the pressure is weighing in on them, they're in their thoughts and they're trying to figure out, am I going to be a good dad? Am I going to get this right? And they're contemplating walking away. What advice, what wisdom would you share to those dads to help them see a different perspective, to know that even though you feel that pressure, it's worth staying?
I would say don't. And now will probably be the end of what I'd have to say. But if I had to add to it, I would just let them know, like, if the pressure is what's getting to you, it gets to all of us. Like, that struggle, I don't think is any different for any father of any race or creed or whatever. I think we all feel that, what if I mess up my kid's life? What if I'm not good enough? It's just like there's a whole lot of stuff can get into your head when you're a guy, and it'll mess you up to the point, because we don't really we don't deal with our feelings well. I don't know if that's a topic for later, but we don't.
We can get into that. Definitely.
But yeah, so we don't deal with our feelings well. I mean, that is something I had to grow into, dealing with my feelings, and dealing with my feelings of inadequacy. Like, there was a point, I mean, if I were to give you the advice, I would just say don't do it. Straight up. Like, that would be the worst decision you can make, because if the concern is, what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm going to mess up my child's life? Like, imagine your child's life if you're not there. Like, if you make that choice to not be there, what will your child think then about themselves?
I'll tell you. Same thing. What if I'm not that, what if at that point the child's going to say, I am not good enough?
Think about what your child would think if you left and you made that choice to leave. It's one thing, like, if you pass away, that's one thing. It's another thing if you make the choice to leave, and then the child just is brought into the world, like, already with a low sense of value of self. Like, why didn't my dad want to be here with me? Like, why am I not good enough? They come out the womb with that. And that's a tough thing. Like, children are very insulated in their thoughts. Like, they don't, like, the rest of the world doesn't exist to them except for them. And, you can call it selfish if you want to, but it's just how they're developed. And the thing about it is if a child grows up, that child from birth who already has this, they have this innate understanding of not feeling good enough because, well, I only have one mom, and then they see, other kids being loved on and doted on by their fathers and their mothers, and they're like, why can't I have that? Like all of the then it's a whole other set of issues and emotional traumas that crop up from that. So if you really don't want to mess up your child's life, don't leave it.
Above 95% of the time, it's just you're gonna do worse harm leaving than staying.
Exactly.
So of the time, like however bad you think it's gonna be if you leave, trust me, or however good you think it's gonna leave if you leave.
Right. You have to be horrible to think it's gonna be better without you. You have to know you're horrible. Just a horrible individual to think it's going to be better without you.
It's
not.
I agree with you.
It never is.
It's not. The child, and like you just said, they're in their thoughts. I know for me, as I stated earlier, my dad passed when I was 4 months old, but I had my own thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Like he had a sickness and he did what he could. I'm assuming to fight through it, and then he transitioned. But as a child, I'm thinking like, why couldn't you fight harder?
Right. Exactly.
Like, I need you here. You left me here with these people. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, even and I went through that for a while until, of course, I started to question as I got older, like, could he really have fought any harder for you? Like, but I took it personally, like for real. And then when you don't have adults explaining to you where your dad is, and outside of, he's not, I knew that he had died, but as far as just sharing his story with me and, even how he met my mom and what he liked to do, his favorite food, stuff like that. I had to ask those questions when I became an adult, because no one, I shouldn't say no one. My oldest sister, my two oldest sisters used to talk about him all the time because they grew up with him. And so they would always have me laughing. And I would even ask them, like, tell me the story about Dad when you guys were cleaning the cabinet and so I forget what happened now, but it was some funny story I used to love to ask about. I haven't heard it in a while because those two sisters have since transitioned, so I don't get to hear that story anymore. But when I was told he was very funny, he loved to sing, he loved to read. And that was funny to know too, because I love to read. I've always loved to read. I didn't find out my dad was a reader till I was an adult. Right. And I knew my mom didn't read, so I thought I got it from my grandmother because she loves to read, and so do all of her children, except my mama. So, my mom would read, but not like they read. Yeah. And so just learning those little things about my dad and trying to find a connection, between me and him and what he liked, and these are the same thing that I like. I would just encourage parents who have children with deceased parents to share stories with those children so that they can find a connection, and they'll make up their own stories in their head. Because I definitely will do it. As far as your dad, what legacy do you feel like he left behind that either you have to carry on, or are you creating your own legacy?
I think my dad left with me was just to be my own man. He gave, I think his thing was like, if he would have talked to me from beyond the grave, he would be like, I gave you all the tools, so now like go be your own person. And now, I was grown when he passed away too, so by that point I was already my own person. And I think that was something that he always admired. Was we didn't talk, like we were close, which is crazy. We were close, but we didn't talk a whole lot. We didn't have to, like because when we were together, we didn't talk a whole lot. We would just sit around, I don't know what we did. We would just hang. We would just kick it. We would talk about stuff like we would talk about life. And he was like, one of the things, he didn't get a chance to meet Jabril. That's my youngest. And that was one of the things, like, it's not a regret, but it was one of those things that I'm like, dang, I really wish he had that chance, because like he would have loved on this boy so hard. And he would have loved to hear him say, "Oh, I'm just doing my own thing, Dad," because that's me. Like he would just hear me telling him, probably telling his mom and dad the same thing, because that's where I got it from. And
Yeah.
but that's what I think it was just to be my own man, and carve out you know, my own life the way I see fit.
Michael Lamb, a child psychologist, said that fathers are the forgotten contributors to child development. Because what I found out is that children with involved fathers have a better physical and mental health, stronger cognitive skills, become better problem solvers, and more empathetic, curious, and confident, which that all makes sense as far as what was lacking in my life. But to actually know that someone has actually researched that and written it down further encouraged me to continue on with A Few Good Dads, because I think that along the way, some kind of way, we have made fatherhood smaller than what it should be. I even got older. Yes, I got older as far as teenager, young adulthood. I looked forward to being a mom because moms are glorified. It's like, and I think we make it look way too easy, because by the time I became a parent, I learned that this really isn't as easy as they make it seem.
No, it's hard for two parents. Like single moms get much love. They get much props from me, because it's a big responsibility.
Listen, here's the trick. I say the trick, and I can't be the only one who was fooled. My mom did such a great job as far as handling all of us. I only have one. My mom, after my dad passed, there were at least 8 children in the house.
Wow.
My mom and dad had 10 children altogether. She has 12. And so by the time he passed, there were a couple in college and there were 8 at the house. I was, of course, the youngest. And I think she made it look, I won't say easy, but from a child's perspective, everything that was supposed to happen happened. I had lights,
right?
Food, so by the time I got to be older, I don't think that I thought that I could not do it by myself.
Okay.
Which is the problem. And not only have I seen her do it, I've seen hundreds of other women do it. Like,
right.
And it looks like they have it under control. And for the most part, they may. But I took that to mean that I can do it by myself. So if me and this guy who are having this baby don't work out, cool, I got
this.
And I think we even had this conversation right before I got pregnant.
We did.
And come to find out, that was all wrong.
Yeah.
It's definitely a 2-parent community project.
Right.
Everybody.
You need all hands on deck.
All hands on deck.
If you have a child, you need all hands on deck. You need mom, dad. You need as much, as much support as you can get. And I think, to answer the question, I think dads have become marginalized. Like I also think there's a lot of bad, negative press about dads, about fathers, and about Black fathers specifically that I don't believe is true. Like I said, my friend circle, I don't know any deadbeat fathers in my friend circle. And honestly, I wouldn't deal with them. Like my friendships with my brothers, like my former teammates, like none of them are like that. Like I look down my Facebook feed and all of them are just doting on their children. Like, and they have grown children like me, children that are getting ready to go to college, have gone to college, have played in the NFL, like stuff of your wildest dreams kind of things. And I'm like, and I know it's not just me who's seeing that. And I know it's not just them looking at all of their teammates, but I'm sure there are other people there are other people at other schools, that have a community or a group of friends where they look at their friends and they're like, oh man, I roll with a bunch of good dads. That's all we knew. That's all. I mean, that's all we knew to do, at least, was to be good fathers. Like if we're gonna put that work in like that, and that's the result. We understood what was at stake. And that was so I think in some ways, like there's that bad press. And I know that that's anecdotal evidence, so it's not necessarily true, but I do believe, like, around the country, like in any communities, especially in Black communities. What you'll see is men getting up early, getting on the bus to get to their job, to work at a factory, to go to Wall Street, to be a lawyer, be a judge. Like you see all walks of life. You see men, Black men doing the right things. And I hate to just kind of pigeonhole the conversation there, but I see the lens through, I see it through the lens of Black fatherhood. I don't see, that's all I knew growing up in my household, at least. So that's the lens through which I see it. So when people try to espouse, these theories about, broken homes and men leaving and all that sort of stuff, there is that. People do that. But all people do that, not just us. And, for the most part, folks that are, getting together to create life are doing it with the best of intentions, not just to do it.
Oh my God. You got two things going I gotta talk about. Okay,
that's all I'm gonna say. That's it. That's kind of my opinion on Black fatherhoods being, I said marginalized was the diminished, marginalized. That's my theory on that, is that but I understand that there are a lot of great fathers from all walks of life, through from all races and all of that. And the thing about it, and I think this, it comes back to my earlier story about my dad say, me not knowing that he was driving a cab. We just we just do it. We do it, and then the kid is gone and grown, and we're like, okay, we did good. I feel like that's what happens, and I think also, man, anybody out here trying to be wanting to be a parent, not just a father, but a parent, for the accolades and for the props, you need to find something else to do. There are better ways to get accolades and props, because children, they will not tell you all the time how great you are. And you will struggle. But what you saw and what you understood was everything was together. Everything worked. But what you didn't know
was how,
or how broken someone may be just to have that kind of Herculean effort. Or how broken someone may be just to have that kind of Herculean effort. My wife went to school this year. She went to all the classes and wrote all the papers and all that jazz. We were doing it together, and we were doing it well. And then she had school, and I took up, I told her, listen, I got it. I took up extra responsibilities. I cooked, I become a better cook in the process too. Just seeing what all went into it and doing and just kind of handling it. I don't want to say by myself, because that's not what happened. I don't want to be I don't want my wife to hear this and be like, that's revisionist history. So I want you to understand that. But I did take up a lot. I wasn't just do nothing brother sitting on the couch while she was in school and, doing all the housework. That's not what happened. But I definitely gained a much greater perspective on what is absolutely necessary to maintain and sustain a household. And I will continue to do it until she's graduated.
I'm very vocal about how easy it is not, because I don't want to, I was fooled by my sisters and aunties and my mom and my grandmother. I dare not fool these people coming behind me that parenting is easy. It's definitely worth it, but it's a 24/7 job. This bro code, I've been waiting to talk to somebody about.
All right, and I find out they're not taking care of their babies. I cut them off.
No conversation.
None.
So now we have someone in the household, but we still have to. Now we have to co-parent.
Yeah.
And I think co-parenting has been glorified, and that's not the goal.
And I'm gonna lead with, that's my child now.
Yeah.
like that, when that became my energy, I believe like I think that's when the connection really started.
Good.
You know,
So that's some great advice for bonus dads or stepdads to make that decision early. There's racism in America and how it affects, in particular, Black men. But now I see it's kind of spreading its wings. It's trying to. I put it that way.
Yeah, it's trying to get everybody.
What advice are you giving her about how to move out here in these streets?
And testosterone is the hormone that like makes your muscles big. Okay.